Work Your Wednesday, the digital CMA part 2. So I'm Laura Perez Freites, and with me I have,
Molly Yaris.
and we're going to talk a little bit more about the digital CMA. So last week we went kind of like an in-depth version of it, and we went through all the parts and pieces and all the truly minutia of putting it together. And this week we're going to have some awesome panelists talk about ways that they use it. But in addition to that, talking through how to use it just as more outreach and really make some impact with your clients. So that's our goal. So we just want to go through the agenda. It's the what and why. We're going to talk through that a little bit more again, just kind of again reiterate what we talked about last week. We're going to touch base with these awesome panelists again, Caitlin Wright and Brian Bomba. So they're on hold right now. And we're going to talk about prospecting with the CMA, printing the CMA, just so we can cover that base as well, because we did get a lot of follow-up questions on that, which we so appreciate. And helping you guide through those pieces, as we know that means you're using the tool, which is the goal here. And then we'll talk about an outreach plan and then next steps for you. So the what and why. Again, sending the digital CMA, you can send it with the DLP, you can send it by itself. It really allows you to collaborate with your potential sellers and really gain insight into your thoughts about the value of that property. I mean, we know what a CMA is, but the secondary part of it is really creating a space where you're able to, integrate and communicate with your clients in a different way. It also just elevates your ability to be tech savvy, which I always think is a good thing. And the CMA really differentiates you immediately, and it gives you another way to raise the bar through platforms. So that's our goal there. And then the why. So sending the report in advance really allows you to, again, give your clients a first look at what's happening in their market. But in addition to that, give you a first look into what their kind of mindset is. So I think that's super impactful. And then you also get to prepare them for a conversation. So it's really just getting those wheels spinning. And so when you are able to sit down with them, whether that be initial listing presentation or really just that initial kind of pricing conversation, they already have some wheels spinning, and usually it's directed by you, which is impactful there. So I am going to hand this over to Molly, and let me make sure that I can get Brian in here. One second, because I don't know where he went. Let me bring him in. See? Here we go. Bring Brian in. Also, give us 1 second, and then I'm going to let you roll.
All right. And then Laura, if you want to unmute the two of them, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
All
I've
right.
asked you both to unmute. So if you just unmute on the bottom, be great.
Thank you. We want to hear your lovely voices. Okay, so this is the amazing Caitlin and Brian. I'm sure there are plenty of people on this call who are very familiar with them. But we went through a list of super users and they came up. So we know that they're really into using the digital CMA. And so we got some questions for them just to kind of get a conversation started here. But to start off, for both of you, could you share how you typically use this tool in your business right now? Caitlin, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, we use it in a couple different ways. For prospecting for sellers, anybody that we have worked with in the past that has purchased a home with us on their home anniversary, we print out a CMA. We kind of put together a fun little box for them. We drop it off at their house. We have some app swag in there and different things, and just, some market info, a handwritten note. So we love to drop that off for them.
Amazing.
A couple people who have been on the fence of, do I sell my house? Do I not sell my house? What's going on in the market? So we've been using it for that as well. Obviously, we love our digital tools and sending it digitally, but some people really like to have that collateral to be able to discuss it with a spouse or whomever. So we like to send it kind of both ways for that too.
That's great. And I love the handwritten note. We all know those handwritten notes go a long way. And then Brian, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you're using this currently?
Yes, I too use it in a number of ways, but the most common way is in step 2 of a 2-step listing presentation. And the reason I like it is that when I get somebody into the office, which is the most persuasive place to have someone for a listing presentation, I want to talk about marketing, not valuation. So I have this report printed and I hand it to them at the end of the conversation with my conclusion of value. and say, take it home and redline it if you have questions. So I don't consume any of the value in office time with them discussing valuation. And because it looks so comprehensive and professional, it's almost daunting for them to want to tear it apart in front of me at
Yeah.
that time. That is the most
Yeah.
common use that I have for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, it's great as a printed piece. We went over how to customize a lot of it in the last session, but it is really very useful in that way. And then, I mean, another question for both of you is like, what are your favorite features or feature of the tool? And then, yeah, Brian, do you want to just keep going?
Yeah, in fact, there's two things that I like a lot. Number one is whenever anybody contacts me and says, hey, what's my house worth? I'll never just give them an answer verbally or send them an email or a text. I'll run it through the tool for a couple of reasons. Number one, it carries with it a huge amount of professionalism, but more importantly, I want to remember what I told them. And I mean, you folks looked in, the system recently. I don't know how many hundreds of these reports.
Oh, it was a lot. It's a lot,
That's
Brian.
a lot. So I can just
Yeah.
I can just go in there and see what the number is, and I'm never wrong. So that's number one. Number two is that I like that I'm now notified when someone opens it. And for example, if you send it to someone, they open it 3 weeks later, well, that is a cue to me that it may be the proper timing to engage them with some additional follow-up.
Those are both such good points. I love that. I mean, yeah, it is a fantastic tool. Caitlin, do you have any favorite things you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I like, similar to Brian, that you can see how many times they've opened it, when they've opened it. So you can kind of see how motivated they are, or to his point, the timing of it. I also just like how it looks aesthetically, to be honest with you. It looks really nice. And I like on the digital tool also that it's super interactive. They can see the averages of everything. There's photos of all the homes. It's just, I like the averages and how aesthetically it looks, but even printed out, it looks really nice. Because if you think about it, my friends that work at other brokerages, nobody else has a tool like this, and a lot of our other tools, but especially this one. So it's really impressive to potential clients and even buyers, when they're getting something this in depth and seeing, that we have that true market knowledge and how cohesive it all looks.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good point. And I like how we mentioned it last time, but having it prepared in advance means that, like, wow, okay, if you are able to get this to them so quickly and it looks this professional, it really sets you above your competition. As we know right now, it is a very competitive market. Another question, so for Caitlin, so like tell us more about how you prospect using the digital CMA.
Yeah. So for us, like I kind of mentioned earlier, if there's a seller that's, on the fence of, I don't know if I'm going to sell, I don't know if I'm going to buy. So we'll kind of use this tool for that. But before, we even meet with them, like a day or two before we go to our listing appointment. And similar to Brian, we do a 2-step process as well. But before we go and sit down with them, we drop off the physical collateral. We do it in a pizza box with any relevant market information, our seller's packet that's personal to us, and then app collateral as well. But they love the pizza box, and sometimes we'll take one of the kind of bags that we have in the office and leave it on the front handle of the door or whatever it is. But it's just really nice high-end material to get over to them before you even sit down with them. And again, a handwritten note also, but it's really high-end. It shows, oh, wow, they're really preparing for this meeting. They're really taking this seriously. And they're getting me collateral before even sitting down with me. So we use it in that regard. And then for buyers, before we even make any offer or discuss any kind of price range, that's what we send them digitally. And then we go over it with them on the phone as well before making any offers or talking about any other terms, just because as we all know, during COVID and now, kind of the after effects, a lot of overinflation in the market. So just making sure what they're asking for is fair market value. And it just shows that, you're not just throwing a number out there to try to get them the house. You're making sure it's really validated.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good point. Any opportunity you guys have where you can reinforce the value that you bring to your clients is something you take advantage of. And it's a very good opportunity using this CMA. And then for Brian, so do you have any tips you can share for agents looking to use this tool to enhance their process? Any best practices for accurate and personalized interaction with your clients?
Yeah, in fact, I'm just a huge advocate of the two-step listing presentation. And and the reason for that is if a prospective seller knows come into my office and meet with me for about half, I'm weeding out all of the people who are looking for free valuations. Okay. Um, I don't need any of those. It's a situation where, in addition to using the CMA tool, the at properties offices are beautiful. I use the office as a prospecting tool. So as opposed to having a presentation at someone's dining room table where the Amazon Prime guy is ringing the front door and the dog is ringing, the dog is barking and the kid is pulling on you, I'm in a controlled environment that just, reeks of professionalism. And, even before they come by, I let the front office managers know their names, so they're greeted by name. And my closing percentage of people who come into my office is so high. It's so significantly higher than 90%. I don't even track it. And I think that would be the number one way to increase the efficiency of the process for agents, as well as increase their closing percentage.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, not to brag, but our offices are very pretty. And yes, competing with the Amazon delivery guy and the kids that are home from school and, the dog that needs to be fed is impossible. So you might as well be able to control it. And it just reinforces how amazing and professional and how much you're kicking butt because you're in this amazing office with basically someone to introduce you. It's fantastic. Well, thank you both. You are amazing super users. We really appreciate you getting a chance to talk with us today. Oh, we have some good questions.
There was one question in the chat that I'd love to go over because I think it was impactful. And thank you, Jorge, for answering part of it. Jorge put it in the chat, but the question is Brian, there was maybe a little volume in and out when you were starting your answer to your best practices, but I think really reiterating the fact that you're going in and doing a two-step process is pretty incredible. So I think that's important, and I think that was one of the best tips in what you provided for us right now. And the first appointment, one of the agents asked, your first appointment is in person or your first appointment is sending the CMA?
No, the first appointment is in person at their house. And, I let them know that I will be there a maximum of 15 minutes. And the purpose of the first meeting is for me to understand their house. I said, I'll be taking notes. I'll be asking you questions. You can do the same with me. In most cases, it takes less than 15 minutes. Okay. And I intentionally don't talk too much because I want to create uncomfortable pauses of air that they usually fill with information that I can use to create a more persuasive presentation later. Also, when I'm in their house, I can do a pretty good job of analyzing what type of personality they are. For example, if I see, 3 diplomas on the wall that they're actuaries and CPAs, guess what? My presentation is going to be significantly more, numerical in flavor. All right. And when I do the second appointment in my office, they have to agree to that up front. And when I first started doing this, I'm going like, oh my God, how am I going to get anybody into my office? I've done hundreds and hundreds of these in my office. The only time I won't do one in the office, let's say somebody's really old, like there's somebody's 85 years old and their health. I mean, I'm not going to do that. But everybody else has to come in. And there are times, and they usually come in during business hours. However, I've done these as early as 6 in the morning. I don't care. And I tend not to do them later. I've done usually like 6 o'clock at night. But if you think that it won't work for you and that people won't come into the office, you're wrong.
I love that.
Really
Thanks for the
love that.
challenge, Brian. That's a good challenge. I really appreciate that because it's sharing best practices on so many things, not just the digital CMA, but your process. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Caitlin, can you tell us what the pizza box is?
Yeah, so we have them in the offices, at least we do in St. Charles. So I use the bigger ones if I have the full like listing presentation binder, just because ours are a little smaller and they don't fit them. I actually have one that we have like a team specialized one. Let me grab it.
Yes.
We got
I
these
was really
made.
hoping you had a visual aid. This is
Yeah,
great.
we got these made, and my business partner I think is on the call, and she can send the website that we used for these
Ooh.
in the chat hopefully. But it's, you know, it has kind of our logo. We are the right choice. You know, all of our social handles, and then in here it obviously has the At Properties Christie's logo.
Caitlin, can you turn your background blurring off? It's
Oh,
blurring the
yeah.
box.
Sorry, hold on. 1 second.
No, it's okay. We all do.
Do
I do the same
this.
thing, obviously.
Because people on the call want to see it.
There we
I
go.
know,
Okay,
I'm
hopefully it's
sure
not blurred anymore.
Oh no, it's all good.
This is our team one. It has our website on the side, just little fun things that we kind of added. And then on the inside, it talks about, you know, each of us, who we are, our backgrounds, and then we have testimonials in the bottom. And yeah,
Fantastic.
I think Mary Kay is on this call, and hopefully, and if not, I can send out the website after this once I grab it from her.
We would love to share it.
Yeah,
It's
but these
very
ones,
impressive.
they're great for just the CMA packet and whatever else collateral. They don't fit the big listing presentation binder that we have. But this is good if you're just doing like a home anniversary or something like that. It's not like a true listing appointment. But the ones in the office are great for the bigger binders.
I would just like to
Fantastic.
say, because I follow you on social media, as an added tip, I know that you all share this on social media, some of your collateral. I've seen like a reel or some images before. So that's really another touch. If you put in all the work to create this collateral, like Brian has a background right now just with his logo on it. I think these are fantastic ways, again, to reassert your brand, reassert your presence, and just making sure that you hit all angles, I think is really great. So I've definitely seen that on your social media, Caitlin.
Good.
So,
I'm glad it's getting out there.
yeah, it's getting out there. I love it. We have one question for you, Brian, real quick. When you are doing someone who maybe isn't capable of coming into the office as part of your process, do you then do the second step in their home?
Yes, so yeah, I would do that in their home. And it has to be really defined. I would tell them, you know, the first step is for me to understand the home. And then I tell them I need about 2 or 3 business days to put together 2 reports that we're going to discuss. Number 1, it's going to be the custom marketing program that I put together to sell your house. And number 2, I'm going to share with you what the most probable sale price of your house is in today's market. So they know what to expect up front, right? And when we have the second meeting, always talk about the marketing first and the valuation second. Because if you flip it, if you talk about the valuation first, they're going to think, oh, my house is worth $750 minus the commission, and whatever. They're not going to listen to a word you say. So marketing first, valuation second, and 98% of the time is talked about marketing and 2% is talked about valuation.
That is awesome. Well, again, thank you both. Unless anyone else has any more questions, we're probably going to move on with the presentation. But lots of thank yous in the chat right now. We really appreciate sharing some of your secret sauce. So thank you. And yeah, so we'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you both, Caitlin and Brian.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Thanks for
day.
having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right.
That was fantastic. I love that. Let's talk a little bit more about prospecting with the CMA. Molly.
Woo! All right. So prospecting with the CMA. It is a great tool for more than just your sellers. There is again, a lot of opportunity here for you to reiterate your value. You can use it in a lot of different ways, but using it as an update is huge. A person's home is generally their largest financial asset. They need to know what's going on with that year to year. It's a very, very good opportunity for outreach in a way that is extremely practical and something that they're actually looking for. Right now, we've got a lot about real estate in the news. It's constantly everywhere. a lot of people have misinformation because it is a super, super hyper local thing. So you being able to provide value for them and giving them insight is something that they're really going to value. If you had a financial advisor with a large investment that you had with them, you would be getting a report from them yearly at least on how that investment is doing. This is an investment for a lot of people. So a yearly, at least yearly outreach from you with the digital CMA is a perfect thing to do. It also, again, gives you the opportunity to reinforce that value. Right now, there are a lot of questions and a lot of questions that you can answer. We hear this from real estate agents all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to, like, what do I do for outreach? What do I say to them? This is something you can say. They have questions. I am not a real estate agent, and I still have people, if I mention that I'm in real estate, everyone's like, oh my God, tell me about the market. You guys have way more insight to share than you might realize that you do. And being able to share this with them, being able to actually see what properties are going on, like what's going on in their area, it's extremely important. And also, again, very seamless outreach for you. And then the other thing is make it part of your plan for the year. Are you going to do this for anniversaries going forward? If that stuff is coming up in your outreach tab in your platform, is that what you're going to do? Are you going to start making this default outreach because you probably have missed some anniversaries for the year? Okay, maybe we're going to do this for the rest of the year for outreach as people start coming up. Another great reminder to make sure that everything is ranked so that things are actually coming up in your outreach as you want them to. But so making a plan and sticking with it is huge. This is a really, really powerful tool, and we're going to kind of go through some ideas of how to go about that prospecting process as well. Fantastic. Okay, so printing the CMA, we had both of our amazing panelists talk about how they print this. So there are pros and cons of that. Obviously, this is probably the number one, is that you work with a lot of clients that might not be as tech savvy. They might not be willing to or know how to click on a link in this email that you're sending them. This is going to be a better fit to have it printed out. It's something that they are going to feel very comfortable with. It also creates a conversation and gets noticed because it's a larger piece. If you're unable to go over it with them in person, mailing it is wonderful because it's a big envelope. You're going to need a big envelope. You know what I don't miss in my mail? A big envelope. It's very much something you're going to want to open. It's not your general postcard, and it is going to be easily noticed, especially if it's coming from you and you're the real estate agent. So that's a good point. And then it's also, again, really easy to review in person. You can obviously still have the digital CMA and go through it on like an iPad or your computer, but it's nice to be able to, you know, make notes on things, have them like highlight questions. It's just very interactive. Another pro that we didn't put on here, but I think is a huge pro, is that is going to get filed. They have a file folder with all of their massive amount of paperwork involving their home. This is going to go right in there. So it's a really great reminder. Next time they're like, oh, maybe we should, like, maybe we're thinking about, you know, selling, open up that folder. Guess what's right in there? Your name right on top. Look how official you were. It's really a great way to go about it. I actually, when we bought in 2020 and our real estate agent sent us one of these printed for our year anniversary. And as someone that works in real estate, like, I could understand and go through this information. If he'd sent it as an email, I would have gone through it. It would have never been a conversation. However, because it was the big envelope, it came to our house. My husband gets the mail. He saw it. So instead of it being something that wasn't a conversation between the two of us, if it was an email, and also, you know, we all have one spouse that specifically is the one that's keeping an eye on the email and the one that isn't, let's be honest. But it became a whole conversation. We walked through that together because it was an in-person piece. He wanted to understand what it was. I was able to go through that with him. Would have been a huge value add for my agent to have called and said, hey, I would love to sit down and go through this with you too. Yes, absolutely. Missed opportunity, because really that was the moment where he could have walked through. I was able to provide the insight because I work in real estate, but your day-to-day person is not going to be able to review the CMA completely and feel like they absolutely understand all of it, you have a lot of insight you can add. There are some cons to printing it. Obviously, it's no longer live. This is true. It's not as comprehensive. Like, you don't want to necessarily print everything. Again, we showed you how to customize and everything with the printing within the last session, so you can always go back and review that. It's also, you know, not as interactive as in the digital version, but I do think that it's a kind of, we're going to go through the steps for prospecting with this, and we combine using the digital version with the printed version. And I think it means that you make sure that you're hitting both sides of this, essentially.
I think that was a really good point that you said, Molly, about some of the pros in printing it. You know, again, this looks aesthetically different than Cloud CMA or another CMA you know, tool you might have used before. So it is a little bit more branded to you. It is a little bit more fits and aligned with your brand, which I think is fantastic, always reiterating on that. But in addition to that, I really love the idea of it being a conversation starter. So not just within the household, but I mean, let's be honest, how many times are we sitting at a barbecue now that we're in the summer months and someone's like, can you believe what my home worth? I mean, people want to talk about these things. And so if you're in a position where your client is sitting at a barbecue and they're like, my agent just sent me, man, can you believe, you know, our property values increased by 10K, by
Yeah.
whatever that is, and they create that conversation, and the person on the other end of that table is like, where did you get that info? Well, my agent sends it to me, you know, every year. They send me this information. Like, what, yours doesn't? And that's an
Yep.
opportunity for you to get that referral. So we're always talking about the referral. We're always talking about bringing it back to making sure we add value. And that's a sincere opportunity where they could say, you know, my agent has made a difference. So not only in the gifting and the events and all those pieces that we talk about, again, building that referral, but this is one of those that we're talking about adding value and them using that to potentially get more people in your pool. And, you know, Brian said something a little bit earlier that I thought is impactful. Now, while most of us are not in a position to say no to business, and not that Brian said he does that, but I like the idea of creating a space where in a two-step process, you know, having it talk through where you're getting people that are really interested in what you have to offer them, I think is great. So meaning I'm not just giving out evaluations and sending out, you know, pricing and things like that. I'm really getting people kind of that I'm going to sit down with that are intentional, that are serious about the process. And I think that was great. So going back to printing the CMA, I think that was so great of you to mention, Molly, is like people will file that and will, whether that be, you know, figuratively or realistically, they are filing that and hopefully using that and to talk you up when you're not around. So
Absolutely. And like, let's be honest, we're all nosy neighbors in this market, especially if you've got someone who's been in this neighborhood for 20 years and they're like, wow, that like house that wasn't so nice down the block just sold for how much? And that is definitely going to be a conversation in the neighborhood. And yes, where did you get that information from? Oh, my real estate agent. Yep, that's how you generate more business. So this is our outreach plan. So this is how you can go about when if it's before for the yearly anniversaries, if it's going to be your default outreach for a while, this is how we're suggesting you go about this. Obviously, customize this to where it works for you, but this is what we suggest. So step one, share the CMA. So you're going to share the CMA with them again via email and add a custom message. We're going to give you some little scripts for that as a follow-up. And this is obviously going to then lead to a educational e-campaign that we're going to load in your tool because we love doing that, as you know. And then depending on what the deal is with that specific client, it might be sharing it via email or it might be print. That's going to be based on your knowledge of the client, their age, everything else, how tech savvy they are. Again, the big envelopes can't be understated. And then your step two is going to be setting up a follow-up meeting. So this is your opportunity. I talked to so many agents that are like, oh no, I've sent out a ton of digital CMAs. Nothing ever comes of them. Did you follow up? That's the problem. You can send it to people, especially if it's an email. Let's be honest, we get a lot of emails. on a daily basis. It can get lost in the shuffle. I am way more likely to look at something if I hear from someone saying, hey, I sent this to you, I want to talk about it, especially if it's my real estate agent, because again, it's part of the conversation right now. It's an important value add for them. So whether that's call or text, again, this is based on how well you know your people. You can do it either way. We're going to share little scripts for that too. It is definitely important to set the follow-up meeting. We suggest that the follow-up meeting be in person if possible. Like Brian said, anything you can do to kind of reinforce how professional and amazing you are, meet them at the office, absolutely. If you want to meet them somewhere else, you're welcome to, but it's the in-person meeting. We all know that most people are choosing to work with you because they have a great connection with you, because you're awesome people to hang out with. They know you, they want to see your face. Phone call, you know, if you have to, that's fine, that works, but just make it as personal as you can. And then when you come in person, you bring that printed CMA, even if you send it to them already in printed form, bring a copy, because they are going to want to go through it and we're not going to trust them to remember to bring it with them. So make sure you bring a printed version, and then you want to walk it through with them. There's a lot of information that you can share. They can ask questions. It's an opportunity for you to really, really start a conversation and reinforce your value. Again, we know in this market, there are a ton of data points flying around about real estate. A lot of them are probably not applying to the people that you're working with, and they are going to want information. This is a great opportunity for you to talk through those things with them. You know, it also is an opportunity to talk through like, hey, you know, your value has really gone up like this much. Like, I know you mentioned that your daughter is moving out to Hinsdale, and that's going to be kind of a commute for you. Are you thinking, like, this is a part of the conversation starting, and those things you really can't do if you just send it to them via email. You can see how much of an opportunity you're missing to really, really build value for your clients and make an impression. Because as Laura said, you want to be that person that they're talking about at the barbecue. You want to be on their mind. And this is a very, very easy way to do it. Again, we know that outreach and prospecting is not everyone's favorite thing to do, because sometimes it can feel disingenuous, right? Like, you don't want to bother them. You know, they're busy. You'd feel like you haven't talked to them in too long. Understandable, that happens. Like, that's fine. But this is a very, very practical reason why you can outreach to them. And it's something they are going to appreciate. Worst case scenario, you send it to them and they don't respond. Okay, fine. But at least you've made that effort and you've given them that opportunity. This is a very, very practical thing. You should figure out how you want to use it going forward.
I love that. I think there's two parts to the outreach plan that you hit, as well as Caitlin and Brian. So one is when you're sharing the CMA, if we're doing it print, there's one thing that you can elevate that a little bit with, and it being using one of the pizza boxes, using one of the tote bags we have in the office. I think that's all super impactful. And we are going to share, Caitlin and her business partner did send over their link of where they ordered those to customize that. That's really cool. And if you have the capability to do that, that's awesome. But in addition to that, we have the black pizza boxes that are really designed for the listing presentations in office. And so those are at your front desk, and that's a nice opportunity to use those as well. So it's just about the presentation part of it. I think is great. I like the handwritten note card. I like adding all those kind of personal pieces. Now, we talked last week about adding personal pieces to the actual presentation, but I think this is secondary to that. Adding personal pieces in your interaction with the drop off and in your interaction with the outreach portion of it. Okay. So there's kind of two parts to that. But I also like something to think about is adding that call to action in the note, adding that call to action, whether that be you printing it and dropping it off and doing that as a way, adding a conversation about, you know, there's more here that we can discuss. There is more here, because I think a lot of what we've talked about in the past is using the digital CMA as an outreach, which is fantastic. So you send it, but also you kind of send it and forget it, right? So there's no follow-up and there's no real call to action. And so there's a portion of most of us, which we kind of need to be led. So if you lead your clients in a way that says, hey, this is the information I'm sending you. Let's set up a time to discuss, or even let them know that that's an option, because I think maybe there's just some disconnect there and you want to create the path of least resistance, right? And so it is saying, come to me with those questions, make sure that I'm your resource. And if you just want to discuss this, hey, I'm here. So let's set up a meeting, phone call, Zoom, whatever it is. And again, we talked about, the really big impact of coming to the office, and that's amazing. And that's really kind of for your 2-step listing presentation process. This is really going back to your clients that you've worked with and reiterating your value in that space. But in addition to that, making sure they understand that they can come to you with all of these pieces. And this is why you're adding value kind of on a consistent basis. So I love both of those, and making sure that there's a call to action. And Pam, you put in the conversation, it's a good conversation starter to check in to see if they filed their homeowner's exemption. That's another outreach impact. You'd be amazed at the number of people who don't. If they haven't, we help them file. You can go back 3 years. I love that, Pam. That's a really impactful outreach plan in that same regard. So, if we're making it intentional and going through our people, because Molly, you said ranking your people earlier. I don't know if anybody on this call thought we weren't going to talk about the CRM one more time. Sorry, we are. But going back and ranking your clients and making sure you know who your A people are, and also a subset of that, making sure that you have all of your past clients in a flow for outreach. That is going to be super impactful to making sure that not only are you getting that business continuously, but you're also getting the referrals. So it's 2 parts there. Okay. So I think that's really important for us to go over. So we're going to talk about the next steps. So we've given you lots of ideas. We had some awesome panelists that went through how they use this in their business, how they prospect with it within their spheres, and a 2-step process, which, I mean, we weren't even planning to discuss, but I think it's so great that they added that value. So we're super grateful for that. But in talking through next steps and what you can do to make this part of your business and to make this part of your process is deciding how you want to use it. Okay. So choose an approach that will work best for you. So send this for closing anniversaries. So put those in your calendar, set those up on making sure that you're using the dashboard of your CRM, because those feed over to you. So you don't have to do anything on the dashboard of your CRM. A closing anniversary with anybody that you've closed with while at properties will pop up there. And it's just an automatic reminder for you to reach out to them. Boom. You can do that on a consistent basis. If you have an awesome time blocking where Mondays is where you do prospecting for your digital CMAs for the week, potentially, who knows? You prospect on Mondays for your closing anniversaries for that week. Sit down and do this for an hour and send those out to everyone. Congratulate them. Can't believe it's been 3 years. Send this information. And again, do the call to action and give them a reason to reach back out to you. So use this as a default outreach. If we're talking about making sure that you're in touch with these people on a consistent basis, 32 touches a year potentially is the goal. Then we make sure that you use this as a default outreach. So this is an easy piece for you to send and work through your list of 8 clients. So meaning, am I just going to start today and say, I have not been super intentional about my outreach. This is a great project. I think it'll create impact for me. So I'm going to take out my list of 8 people, whether I'm printing it out, whether I'm going to the digital CMA, pulling down a spreadsheet and saying, I'm going to start sending all of these with a call to action, with a request for a follow-up or an offer for a follow-up, because I think that's a better way to position it, is giving them an opportunity to discuss more. I'm going to go through my list and send this to everybody on my list. That's what I'm going to do. Or I'm going to start working it into my closing anniversary outreach going forward. You decide what works best for you and just make it part of your process. I think that's really the goal with all of these, Work Your Wednesdays, is giving a lot of information and for you to pull pieces of it that will work best for you. Okay. And then customize your scripts. We're going to don't forget, we're going to be sending you some outreach scripts. We're going to do some email and text message scripting for you. So we'll have 2 different pages. Go through them and again, make them your own. Save them as an email template in your email signatures, in your Outlook. Do whatever you think is going to help you when you sit down to complete this. Make it faster, more efficient, and again, with that, more effective over time. So let's make sure we create that for you. And then all in all, practice using the digital CMA, right? So we talked about that last week. I hope that you all did. we'll stop for a second to give you an opportunity to ask any questions about the tool, ask any questions about whatever we've discussed today. But making sure that you practice the digital CMA, because the more you practice it, the more comfortable you'll get with the tool, and the easier it will be for you to, one, execute and send it out when an opportunity comes to you, and quickly and efficiently. But in addition to that, making sure that you make it part of your process and creating projects for yourself. So if you don't have a property you can use your personal address, use your own home, use the office address, whatever it is, to create those searches and put those pieces in place, and then take some time to customize your branding and your information like we discussed. So create a one-pager marketing plan that you upload there. Make sure your short bio is a way that you like it. Make sure that your full bio is a way that you like it. So when I meet with agents and Molly meets with agents and we're saying, hey, we have so many things we could be working on, these are little bits and pieces. And I was talking about it earlier with Molly when we were prepping for this call, but this is kind of like an iceberg of things that we can accomplish, and it might feel really big, but if we take little bits and pieces off of it as we go through, it'll feel so much easier. And if you have all this prepped and ready to go, again, when the opportunity arises, you're ready. So I think that's really impactful for us to make sure.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that this is a really beautifully branded piece is great, but it's the speed that you're getting it to people too. Like if you're, especially, I mean, obviously less with sellers, but more, it is really something that the speed is going to make a difference. So if you're able to do it quickly and get it to them when you've started that conversation, great. But you need to make sure that you're making sure it's quick. So again, the practice is huge. The more comfortable you are with it, the better.
Totally. There's a great question in here.
Yeah.
Cheryl asked, when I use the digital CMA, I like being able to comment on the individual listings I'm showing as comps. Once it's sent and the seller gets updates, I can no longer do that. Correct? No, that's not correct. You can actually edit and update notes throughout the entire life of the digital CMA, and it only stops running if you choose to archive or delete the digital CMA. So Cheryl, you can go in and make edits, and again, create notes and create kind of this constant line of communication as long as that digital CMA is running. So I just encourage you to use that as much as you can, because I think that's impactful. And there was one thing that Caitlin mentioned when she was talking through how her team uses the digital CMA. And I thought it was really impactful right now when we're talking about adding buyer value. I think it was great that she talked about using the digital CMA when making an offer. And that is kind of a subset of everything that we're talking about right now, because, obviously when we're talking about a CMA, we feel very intentional about working on it with property value and sellers predominantly, but there is a lot of value in using the digital CMA where it's interactive for your buyers. And I think that that's great. Yes, Francesca, you can add additional homes in the CMA as it is flowing up to date. Even if it's months later, correct? You can add specific ones. You can go in and pin them as we showed you last week. So I know that Molly sent out the recording already for last week. So if you missed that and want to go through those editing portions and the way you can go back in and access it, that's all in the recording from last week. So make sure you rewatch that if you aren't certain on how to change those settings. And then you can add additional homes. So that's 100% correct months later. Let's ask, Darby has a question about the CMA. When we have a new cover page photo with updated verbiage, can we update the stop looking, start finding to something that is more seller based? So on the digital CMA, it doesn't have that kind of cover page on, maybe you're talking about the DLP, because on the DLP, we have that like cover page where it has the stop looking, start finding. We don't have that on the digital CMA. There's kind of no presentation page like that. It just goes right into, there's the verbiage on the body of the email, and then you actually click the hyperlink to log into the CMA itself. Awesome.
Thank you guys. You're really popping up in the chat right now. This is great.
Linda, there is I love all the questions coming in. We'll just try to kind of answer them one by one, because I love that you're asking the questions, because there's probably other people on the call with the same or similar questions. So I love that we're kind of going through these. You've asked for a clone button. There is a clone button on the digital CMA, Linda. So when you have the digital CMA up, there's the photo of the property and then the address below it. And then there are 3 dots to the right, and you can actually clone a digital CMA as well. Yeah. Allison, you do not need to resend it, but you can if you'd like.
Mhm.
You can resend it if you like. Yeah. Look for that, Linda. So
It's always the dots.
it's
Everything,
always like
most
the
everything
3.
can be
I
found
mean,
in the
they're called
dots.
dots, right? But like it's like in my head, I'm very visual, so it's like the etc. So it's like the dot dot dot. There's more, etc. Click that, and we can see more. Because if we had all those on there, you know, it'd be even harder to find stuff. So I love that. Yeah, Darby, sorry, we're talking about the DLP and the digital CMA at the same time because they are integrated, which is fantastic. But we're really talking about this tool specifically. So I agree with you. And then Darby, there are some options in there to change that. So just thinking out loud, it would be good to do that. But maybe just again sending it independently. So sending it as the digital CMA as opposed to embedded in the DLP. If we're using it for buyers, it'd be a little bit different, right? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I think
Great,
we hit all the
right?
questions.
I
Yeah,
think
and then
so.
also you can always add, like if you have additional questions, you're always welcome to reach out. We're happy to help. And then we will be sending some scripts and recordings and everything else will be going out in the agent app.
Yeah. And then we'll make
Great.
sure to
So
share that website for the custom pizza boxes.
yeah, I
Because
snatched it from the chat as soon as it went in, just so we have it.
awesome.
So
That's fantastic. You know, if you're able to customize that, like we talked about, anytime is great. And there are some other options we can use, you know, even just having that pizza box or just dropping it off and creating that personal, you know, the personal note. It just creates this space where it's, you know, Brian's elevated opportunity of being super professional, which is impactful, and then adding the relationship piece, I think with just the personal notes is great. I do too, Pam. I love the pizza box idea. I think it's awesome.
yeah, it's fantastic. Everyone likes something that's self-contained. It makes it easy.
Makes it easy, and maybe they keep it, maybe they just hold it on the side, or like Molly said, they just file it. I love it.
Just talk about differentiating yourself too. I mean, really.
For sure.
Fantastic. Well, great. Well, we hope you guys have gotten a lot out of today, and hit us up with questions if you need it. But I think we're good. And thank you all for showing up at a nice early summer morning.
For
And
sure.
we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.